Sometime in the 6th century, an army marched through the Arabian desert toward Makkah. Not a raiding party, not a tribal dispute, a full military campaign, organized, equipped, and moving with one specific purpose: to destroy the Kaaba. At the front of that army were war elephants. The Arabs had no answer for this. No standing army, no fortified walls, no weapon capable of stopping a force like that. And they knew it. So the people of Makkah made a decision that, on the surface, yes, looks like surrender. They gathered their families, climbed into the surrounding mountains, and waited. What happened next was not decided by any army. It wasn't decided by strategy or alliances or last-minute resistance. What happened was recorded directly in the Quran, in a chapter so short it takes less than a minute to recite, and yet it preserves one of the most remarkable events in Arabian history. This is the story of the Year of the Elephant. Before getting into the event itself, you need to understand what Arabia looked like at the time. There was no unified kingdom ruling the peninsula. Power moved through tribes and alliances. Loyalty was local. And yet, in the middle of all that division, one place held a kind of gravity that cut across tribal lines. The Kaaba in Makkah. Islamic tradition holds that the Kaaba was first built by Prophet Ibrahim and his son Ismail, peace be upon them both, as a house of worship devoted to Allah alone. By the 6th century, much of Arabia had drifted into idol worship, and the Kaaba itself had been filled with idols. But even then, even in that state, its sanctity was respected. Fighting near it was forbidden. Pilgrimage continued. It remained the spiritual center of the Arab world. Far to the south, in Yemen, a man named Abrahah had been appointed as governor on behalf of the Abyssinian kingdom of Aksum. He was ambitious, organized, and, by all accounts, deeply aware of the influence that Makkah held. He built an elaborate church in the city of Sana'a, intending it to become a rival center of pilgrimage, a place that would draw people away from the Kaaba and redirect religious attention southward toward Yemen. It didn't work. The Arabs kept going to Makkah. The church, however grand, couldn't compete with the sanctuary that had been a part of their world for generations. And when reports reached Abrahah that someone had even desecrated his church in response, out of contempt for his ambition, his reaction was not political maneuvering. It was military. He decided to march on Makkah and tear the Kaaba down. The army that moved north was unlike anything most of the peninsula had faced. Large, well-organized, and led by at least one war elephant. Historical accounts mention the lead elephant was named Mahmud, possibly more. For Arabian tribes accustomed to combat on horseback with swords and spears, the sight of war elephants was a psychological weight on its own. Groups that tried to resist along the route were swept aside. Nothing slowed the advance. By the time Abrahah's forces settled near Makkah, the situation was clear. The Quraysh, the leading tribe of Makkah, could not fight this army. Their chief, Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a man of enormous dignity and standing. But even he understood that standing in front of this force, with whatever weapons Makkah could gather, was not a real option. What happened when Abdul Muttalib went to meet Abrahah is one of the most quietly powerful exchanges in early Islamic history. Abrahah received him, reportedly impressed by his presence, and expected him to plead for the sanctuary. Instead, Abdul Muttalib asked for the return of his camels, which the army had seized. But Abrahah was surprised. "You came to speak to me about camels? What about the Kaaba?" The response that came back has been quoted ever since. "I am the owner of the camels. The house has a lord and he will protect it." It wasn't resignation. It wasn't helplessness. It was a clarity that comes from actually understanding where protection comes from and where it doesn't. Abdul Muttalib knew that no argument he made in that tent was going to stop an army. The Kaaba's safety was not going to rest on his negotiating. He asked for what was his, left, and placed the rest with Allah. The camels were returned, the people waited in the hills, and the next morning, Abrahah's army prepared to enter Makkah. The Quran preserves what came next in Surah Al-Fīl, the chapter of the elephant. It opens not with a narration, but with a question. Have you not seen how your Lord dealt with the companions of the elephant? The question is addressed to the people of Makkah, many of whom were alive when it happened or grew up hearing it from those who were. It isn't asking whether they've heard the story. It's drawing their attention to what the story actually means. Allah sent birds in flocks, referred to in the Quran as Tyran Ababil. They carried stones of baked clay and struck the army with them. The surah ends by describing how Abrahah's forces were left like eaten straw. Classical scholars of Quranic interpretation are careful here, and that carefulness matters. The Quran does not go into the physical mechanics of exactly how the destruction unfolded. It states the outcome and the means, birds, stones, complete defeat, and leaves the precise details in the realm of the unseen. What the text makes absolutely clear is that this was not coincidence, not disease, not bad luck. It was direct divine intervention. The protection of the Kaaba came from Allah. No army defended it. No Meccan warrior drove back the elephants. The people were in the mountains when it happened. And yet the campaign that came with the full weight of Abyssinian military power ended in destruction before it reached its target. The event left such a mark on Arabia that it became a calendar reference. It's in a region without standardized dates. People mark time by significant events. This one was significant enough that the year itself took its name from it, the year of the elephant. An Islamic historical tradition widely holds that this is the same year the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was born. The sanctuary was preserved, and the city that had just been spared would, decades later, become the starting point of the final message of Islam. When the Quran tells the people of Makkah to reflect on this event, it isn't just asking them to remember a military episode. It's asking them to reckon with something about the nature of power. Abrahah came with everything that, by worldly logic, should have guaranteed success. An organized army, superior weapons, psychological intimidation, political backing, and none of it was enough. Not because the Meccans had something stronger, they had nothing, but because what Abrahah was moving against had a protection that operates outside the calculations of military strategy. That name carries weight. It signals a special status, a divine connection. And what the year of the elephant demonstrated is that when Allah has decreed the protection of something, no power on earth can override that decree. Strength determines a great deal in this world, but it doesn't determine everything. It has limits. And those limits are set by Allah alone. The Kaaba that Abrahah tried to destroy is still standing. It is the direction that over 1 billion people face in prayer every single day. The army that came to erase it left without setting foot inside Makkah. History did not unfold the way Abrahah planned it. It unfolded the way Allah decreed it. And that, more than any political or military analysis, is what Surah Al-Fīl is asking you to understand. If this explanation was beneficial, consider supporting the channel by liking this video and subscribing. Share it with someone who values learning Islamic history accurately and without exaggeration.